Welcome to Parker's MMA Show. If you want to learn about all things going down in the fight world, you've come to the right place. Each episode, your host Parker Keene will take a deeper dive into the always entertaining world of sanctioned fist fighting. Now here's your host, Parker Keene.
We're back, episode 19, Parker's MMA Show. I got co-host, new official co-host over here, Billy Naden, back live. Episode 19, Conor McGregor's return. How's it going?
It's going great, man. Really, really excited for this fight this weekend. I think it was my first episode on Parker's MMA Show. I think I said this was the fight I wanted for Conor's comeback, and we're here. It's fight week, so ready to get into it. Ready to discuss this fight.
Let's do it. So let's jump right in. The card overall, what do you think of the card? And then I'll kind of tell you, my thoughts on the card.
For me, I think it's smart business by the UFC, but also a little frustrating as a hardcore fan. I think it's a pretty weak card for a pay-per-view, to be honest.
Does it kind of remind you of it kind of reminds me of a boxing card.
Yeah, maybe. Where the headliner is just that's the main fight. Yeah, that's why you buy the pay-per-view.
Well, and then you put
I could see that.
You put the Macy Barbers of the world. You put Andre Fili, Sadiq Youssef, those guys that if they come out and do something spectacular, they're going to build a gigantic name like overnight.
That's right.
Correct. Yeah, after being on a Conor McGregor card, which in that aspect of it. I think the UFC, if they hit on a couple of those, they're brilliant. I mean, brilliant. So, that's kind of how.
I also think there's a couple weird additions on here, right? Like, how weird is the Maurice Green versus Alexei Olenek fight?
Yeah, that's the one that I just don't know. Why is that on the main card? And why is that the third fight from the top? I mean, I don't really get that one. Is that just two cheap heavyweights they could throw on there and throw more money at Cowboy?
I hope so. I honestly hope so, because ain't nobody buying this card to watch the Crochet Boss fight against the Boa Constrictor.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Obviously, I mean, all eyes are on the main event, but we've got some, notable names, former title holders, Holly Holmes, Anthony Pettis on there. Like we said, you've got, some up-and-comers, Hasbros, you've got Andre Fili, Sadiq Youssef, Roxana Modafferi, who's a veteran taking on Macy Barber, who, I'm very, very high on. And then, you've got a good fight. The Anthony Pettis and the Diego Ferreira fight, I think that's going to be a kind of a barn burner, I think. Goldea versus Grasso, that's a good matchup. And then, that heavyweight fight's just strange, and especially the placement of it's very strange.
Very weird to me. I'm really excited for Youssef against Fili, personally. I think Sadiq Youssef is 4-0 in the UFC with 2 first-round finishes. Fili's like 8-5, but 3-fight winning streak, really seems to be coming into his own. Holloway recently said on Joe Rogan's podcast that Fili's the hardest hitter he's ever felt.
Yeah, that was pretty high praise.
Definitely excited for that one. And then the Pettis Ferreira fight, I think, is great too. I mean, talk about a shot of a lifetime for Diego Ferreira, a guy who's actually been around the block a little bit here, to be able to come in and fight Anthony Pettis.
Well, I think the word I kind of heard this weekend is the reason that was matched up because Pettis was originally supposed to be the guy for Conor, and I guess for whatever reason that fell apart. Well, I guess the Nate Diaz lost probably, but it's just that was kind of a weird matchup because I mean is Ferreira ranked at lightweight? Because this is down at lightweight.
I think he's 15.
Okay.
So I think he's right there.
And then Anthony Pettis is probably like 6 to 10, something like that.
I think he's out of the top 10 now. I think he might be like 12 because of inactivity at lightweight. But
Right.
that division is so deep.
Yeah, that's the craziest division in all of MMA to me, especially right now. So where do you want to start?
Let's dive into the main event. Let's give the people what they want to hear, Parker.
Let's do it. That's what we're here for. So, all right, like all week, I think you and I are on the same page who we think is eventually going to get it done. But the closer and closer we get to this fight, the more reasons in my head that I'm getting a weird feeling about Cowboy. Like Cowboys, I don't know. I think everyone is just kind of looking over Cowboy, and I think this, I've been saying for the last 2 weeks, I think it's going to be a second round knockout for McGregor. But if Cowboy can slide past that second round, I think stuff starts to get interesting, and I think it becomes more of like a Nate Diaz 2 fight, where Conor has this thing. I mean, he's got that just piston of a left hand that, I mean, is worldwide famous. But I think people try to knock Conor for his cardio, and I don't see a huge cardio issue. I see Conor just comes in waves. Like in the Nate Diaz 2 fight, he looked spectacular the first 2 rounds. And then 3 to halfway through 4, he was just kind of surging up and down and then came on strong late. So I don't know. Where do you stand on, what do you think Conor's best way to victory is, and what do you think Cowboy's best way to victory is?
So I'll start with Cowboy, because I think throughout the build up to this, it's been, in my opinion, pretty disrespectful to the star that Cowboy is, the resume that he's built. I mean, I have a lot of people, kind of casual MMA fans, I would say, that absolutely love Cowboy Cerrone, and he does have some name recognition. So to not use him in any of the buildup, I think is a mistake, honestly. But I think a lot of people have been talking about Cowboy's ground game, and so I looked into some stats, right? Because GSP talked about how Cowboy's actually a really good wrestler. He did an interview with Faraz, and Cowboy has not hit more than 2 takedowns in an MMA fight since 2013.
Because he's not that guy, and that's been my argument all week. When I'm talking to people about this fight, they're like, "Yeah, but if the fight hits the ground, Cowboy's gonna submit him." And I don't think Cowboy's gonna throw a takedown. Like, I don't think Cowboy's gonna throw a shot. I think he's too prideful and wants to go in there and bang with one of the best strikers of our generation just to say he did. I think he's that guy. I just don't see, and maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't see it in Cowboy's mindset to go in there and say, "Hey, I'm going to try to take him down in the first round." I don't think that's going to happen.
It's one of 2 things happens, right? I think that is kind of what you just said is kind of the obvious route for Cowboy, where Cowboy is this guy who's built his career off exciting fights, stand and bang. He's a great Muay Thai striker, and he's just going to come and do that. Or he's totally playing possum, knowing that Conor is about as savvy and as dedicated with looking at the media as they come as MMA fighters. And he's been saying, like, I'm going to stand and bang with this guy. I'm going to stand and bang with this guy. And he's going to come out and shoot a blast double and put Conor on his back. But I think it's much more likely that he's going to stand up. And I think if he's going to win this fight, it's attacking the lead leg with kicks and then mixing in body shots with upstairs and body punches, wearing Conor down, and then in rounds 4 and 5, putting in the kill shot to put him away.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I've been thinking about this all week, but yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think the first thing, obviously, is stay away from the left hand. So do not get overextended like he did in the Justin Gaethje fight, where he's loading up with a massive cross and gets himself, out of position and gets clipped. Because I mean, Justin Gaethje, he's a destroyer and he'll catch you. But if you have one slip up with Conor, you're fucked. I mean, if you have one slip up, you're fucked. It only takes one shot from that left hand, and he's as precise, as slick as they get. So that's one. I think number one, stay away from the left hand. And I think that's, round 1 and 2, don't throw a fucking straight, period.
That's a range question for me. Like, I think staying away from that left hand, I don't think for Cowboy it's about, like, I don't think Cowboy's never been a good, like, bob and weave, traditional boxing kind of guy.
Well, he's
like,
more of an upright Muay Thai fighter,
If Cowboy's going to stay away from the left hand, he's got to keep him at kicking range. And if Conor can move in, which I've never seen someone keep Conor at distance ever in any fight. And so he's got to be the first guy to keep Conor in kicking range and out of boxing range, or else Cowboy's going to get hit. Cowboy, even in fights that he wins, he gets hit.
And I think it's a thing like Cowboy can't get himself backed up against the cage. Because you see when Conor lands that left hand, a lot, 90% of the time, he's got the guy backed up against the cage and he's got you moving one direction and he, finds a home for that left hand. And it comes from weird angles. It's not like it's a, 1-2 straight left. I mean, he throws almost like that shovel hook that'll catch you. And he's just super, like you said, super crafty with his distance. And, he'll find a way to that left hand. So I don't really know how Cowboy needs to play the first 2 rounds, because if he goes in there super aggressive, which Cowboy's not a fast starter, he could get caught. I don't know. Like I said, he can't get backed up against the cage because that's when Conor really starts setting you up for that big shot. So I think he's got to, like you say, stay at kicking range, wear out that lead leg, throw body shots. If he gets in close, elbows, knees, and don't get caught in the first couple rounds, and hope Conor starts to dwindle in that third and then start putting his combinations together and opening it up a little more.
Yeah, and what I think is interesting too is we talk a lot about Cowboys' ground game when it comes to Conor and how good the jiu-jitsu is. Conor is a jiu-jitsu brown belt. Like, this is not a guy who is like a decorated kickboxer with 6 months of takedown defense. Like, Chad Mendes was an all-American wrestler and Conor got up in their fight. Like, he got taken down, but he got up. The only person we've seen really be able to hold Conor down is Khabib. Like, he stuffed takedowns in the Alvarez fight, and I think Eddie Alvarez is a better wrestler than Cowboy.
Yeah, no, and the gas tank thing kind of gets to me because you've really never seen Conor past the 3rd round besides Diaz 2 and Khabib. And those are 2 completely different fights. So I don't know how you compare those. I don't know. I just think his gas tank gets overrated, that it's an issue. And then people definitely look over his ground game and his wrestling. You don't become a 2-division champ, and then not to mention all his championships in Cage Warriors with not being able to wrestle, not being able to do anything on the ground.
Now, that being said, I think Cowboy Cerrone has a pretty significant size advantage in this fight. I think he's a much bigger man than Conor, and I haven't really heard it talked about enough.
Well, I think Conor's going to come in the 160s somewhere. And I think Cowboy, I don't think he's as big as Nate was at 170, but I think he'll be the bigger man. So I think he'll probably refuel back up to 178, 180, something like that. So, say he has 12 to 15 pounds on Conor, I just don't think that's, I don't know. I don't think we've really seen Conor with the full camp at 170. So I think there's still just a lot of questions.
Except against Nate Diaz, but I think Nate Diaz is a very, very different fighter than Donald Cerrone.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about the whole 170 thing? I know we talked about that a little bit, and there was a lot in those interviews this week that was basically saying that I mean, John Kavanagh pretty much flat out said it. He said, there's no reason for Conor to cut to 155 ever again unless it's for a title shot.
I agree with him. I think more MMA fighters should take that approach because, number one, I think it's less of a chance that the fight gets called off or that you have to donate part of your purse.
Right.
I think number two, you're not depleting your body, so you're able to go in at full strength without having to worry about the dieting and the weight cut and all the things that come with getting down to that weight. And I think three, like your gas tank is better at a heavier weight usually, as long as you're not just like eating your way up there or getting really bulked up and like you're really fighting at your natural weight. I just think it makes for a better sport. Like I would rather see this than see these guys kill themselves to get to 155.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think for Cowboy, I think he was obliged to take this fight. I mean, he doesn't want to cut weight. He wants to go in there and fight at as close as possible to his normal weight. I think I heard him in an interview said he would cut, like 7 to 10 pounds or something for this fight, and that's it. And that's, a day in the sauna. That's not weeks of killing yourself and dieting and all that.
And the reality is like with Conor, the red panty night is still in effect, right? Like, anyone will take the Conor McGregor fight at any weight. If he had called up Frankie Edgar and said, you have to fight Conor McGregor at 170 pounds, Frankie would take it and weigh in at like 152.
Yeah.
These guys are going to take this fight no matter what the weight class is.
Yeah, and for Conor, for me, I mean, it's genius. If he comes in here and starches Cowboy in 2 rounds, I mean, he can do whatever he wants. He can go back down to 155, fight Gaethje. I even heard John Kavanagh talking about him fighting Gaethje at 170, which would be interesting. Or he's got all of 170. I think we both agree he's probably a fight away from a title fight at 155. But if he goes in there and starches Cowboy and then gets on the mic and calls out Usman, are you trying to tell me they wouldn't book that fight?
I mean, the only reason they wouldn't book that fight to me, and I don't understand who's advising Usman if this is the case, but I think Kamaru is really, really committed to like the hierarchy of the sport and who deserves the title shot, and like isn't thinking about his bank account, or else he'd be all over trying to get the Masvidal fight right now. So that's the only way that wouldn't happen, but I think we've seen that if Conor's winning, he gets whatever he wants in the UFC.
Yeah, that's going to be my biggest thing this weekend. I'm going to be there live, and I just want to see the vibe around Conor. He's had so much chaos and so much negativity the last 2 to 3 years that I literally think he's probably one of the only athletes that could go in there after everything he's done, starch Cowboy in 7 minutes, and just be on top of the world again.
Can we talk about the interviews he gave this week? Because I think it was pretty illuminating when you compare them to some of the interviews he gave before the Khabib fight.
Yeah, and we're not going to get a chance to watch the press conference before this, and we might talk about that later tonight if it airs. But yeah, let's talk about it because it's a totally different Conor McGregor. This is like altar boy Conor McGregor compared to what we're used to.
Well, the other thing is if you Ariel mentioned it on his show, so I went back and watched the interview he gave before the Khabib fight he's got like the Irish immigrant hat on and the tank top, and he's like in the UFC PI, and he just seems like almost like jittery to me. Like I
thought he was coked out.
Seems unfocused. Yeah,
I thought he was coked out. And from the interviews, he admitted it, and so did John Kavanagh, confirmed it. On the lead up to the Khabib fight, he said he had so much just like rage and anger, and everything was about revenge and getting even with Khabib and making it right, that he would bring guys in and they would have full out fights in their training sessions, and they would go until Conor knocked the guy out, and then John wouldn't see Conor for 2 or 3 days. he would just be out of the gym for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it seems like something has changed. I don't know what it was, but it just seems like he's so much more professional with this camp heading into this fight. He's more focused. He seems to be a lot more calm, a lot more serene, a lot more at peace with kind of where he's at in his career. And that is really, really scary if you're picking Tony to win this fight, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, this is a big moment in his career. After everything he's done, he, pretty much lost the support of a whole nation that at one point he was like, he could have been the patron saint of Ireland at the top of his rise.
Right.
I mean, it was St. Patrick, Conor McGregor. And then he goes and he just acts like a scumbag for 2 or 3 years after he gets all the money. And I think he's a little embarrassed of himself. And I think he's ready to turn the corner and get his career back on track. And that's what I feel. And, all my family and friends that I talk to over in Ireland, that's what they say. They say, the last 2018, 2019, Ireland turned on Conor McGregor. And I think that means a lot to him. I think he was, at the height of his powers, he was the biggest star ever in Irish sports. And then he went to being basically on the road to like a Mike Tyson where, you're on the top of the world and you fuck it all up. And I think he caught himself before he went all the way off the rails, and he's going to turn it around.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. Regardless, fight aside, I just hope the guy can straighten out his life because, he's given us some of the greatest moments in my lifetime in MMA, and I don't want to see him take the path that so many fighters take. The question for me, and it goes back to, I believe it's a Bernard Hopkins quote, but it's hard to wake up and run at 5 a.m. when you're wearing silk pajamas, and so.
Marvin Hagler.
Marvin Hagler.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So
well, I think he came to that moment.
Didn't get to him.
Yeah. Well, money's not an object to him anymore. He's got wealth that'll far exceed his lifetime and carry on in his, in his family, his grandkids, their kids. I mean, money's not going to be a problem for that guy. Listen, he's got the #2 whiskey behind Jameson in fucking Ireland. A company that's been around since the 1700s. He comes out of nowhere and makes his own whiskey. The guy's rich. I mean, he's fucking rich. So it's about his pride. It's about his name. And the Irish people, they're very, very proud people. And that means a lot to them. And I think this is make or break for him. This is gigantic. And I think that's why, honestly, in this press conference, I think he's going to be super humble, super respectful to Donald, shake his hand, say, let's put on a good fight, and he's going to go in there and fight.
I think this is the first time since the Eddie Alvarez fight. I mean, the Floyd thing aside, because that's such a sideshow, but I mean, the first time in 3 years where I feel like they were able to set Conor up with an opponent where Conor actually has more to lose than the opponent does.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, for Cowboy, he can, his career is going to go win or lose. And obviously win. He'll get, a lot bigger fights, a lot bigger paydays. But with the loss, he just goes back to being Cowboy. I mean, he's still a fan favorite. He's still a guy that's going to fight anyone, anywhere for the next 4 or 5 years until he retires. So, yeah, this is all about Conor McGregor. And what did you think of the Ariel interview? Because I thought it was fascinating. He just seemed...
I think it's really, really interesting to see that side of Conor. This, like, very humble, almost like introspective look at Conor, basically looking back and trying to learn from what's been a really tumultuous past couple of years. And I think actually it's flying a little bit under the radar, but the quote, Ariel, they think I'm toast, but I'm still the bread. I mean, that's an all-time Conor McGregor quote, in my opinion. That is stellar. So I think he's still got the sharpness to him. He seems really calm. The whole thing about not drinking and refocusing, and his camp has really echoed that level of focus. And I really see a guy who it reminds me almost exactly of when he walked into MSG and starched Eddie Alvarez. Like that's the type of mindset I see out of Conor right now, and it's hard for me to pick against that guy.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, the reality is this was at the time a 25, 26-year-old guy that went on a rocket ship to the fucking moon, made all the money, did things that no one's ever done before, and he got a little off the rails, which is understandable. I mean, you come from nothing. 3 years later, you're fighting the best boxer of all time, making hundreds of millions of dollars, starting whiskey companies, clothing lines, marketing companies. Yeah, I mean, I think he got off the rails, and I feel like he's back. I mean, I really do. Even from the interview he did a couple, 4 or 5 months ago with Ariel after punching the old man, he just seemed like he was, I don't know, not there, not sharp, not calm. Like he had a lot of tension and just issues going on in his life that, he just seemed stressed. This interview, he seemed, I mean, as cool and calm as I've ever seen him. He had a couple jabs where, he said the thing about he could beat Cowboy if he had the flu, or, he's still the bread. That gave me flashes of the old McGregor. But you had about 45 minutes of just calm, humble, intelligent, I mean, thinking clearly and focused Conor McGregor. And that's a scary, scary fucking guy.
Yeah, I think people forget because we have such short-term memories in this sport, but when Conor beat Eddie Alvarez, he wasn't just on top of MMA. Like, he was on top of the sports world. I mean, you look around globally, it was like Messi, Ronaldo, Conor McGregor kind of in the same breath as terms of global superstars. And so, like you said, for a 28-year-old kid at the time to handle that, like, I think he went off the rails and fought Floyd and all that, made 9-figure paydays and lost it a little bit. And I think now not only does he seem calm, but he seems calm with a focus and an edge, and he's back to that same hunger to kind of rebuild his legacy. And yeah. I think this would be the first step for him.
And John Kavanaugh said something too that was, I mean, he basically said, listen, Conor's, he's got everything in line. He's got his family in line. He's got his business in line. He's got his fight camp in line. He's got his team in line. Before that, he said, the rise of Conor was just chaos. I mean, and you can imagine, I mean, you go on a 3-year just crushing it. Everyone wants a piece of Conor McGregor. I mean, you're getting pulled every which way. Yeah, I mean, from John Kavanaugh's interview to the Conor interview, I mean, Conor just seems calm, cool, collected, ready to right all of his wrongs and get his name back. What else did you pull from the Ariel interview? Because there was a lot there. I think it was a 48-minute interview with Conor McGregor. There was a lot.
Yeah. I also really liked Ariel's conversation with John Kavanaugh and this whole idea of they switched the idea during the Floyd camp where the camp started to be about goals, whereas like, I want to fight Floyd. I want to win a world title in boxing. I want to beat Khabib. I want to get my world title back. And it stopped being about the system.
Right.
And I've actually heard a lot about similar things from a lot of high-level mixed martial arts coaches, that it needs to be about getting better in the system and being able to see the shots coming, react to different strikes, adapt to grappling exchanges, and really focusing on getting better as a fighter than staying focused on the goals. And I think this whole shift back to thinking about the systems and bringing back the old Crumlin boxing club coaches, I mean, that was a big thing for me. It's like really getting back to the roots of this like win or learn mentality that made Conor so great in the first place. I think it really, really genuinely seems like they are actually getting back to that, when for a while there, it seemed like that old Conor and that old mentality was never coming back.
Yeah, that I had a note of that too. That was he used an example. He said, like in the Chad Mendes fight. I mean, he had 2 hard rounds with Chad Mendes. Chad Mendes took him down, was beating him up, and he was able to make an adjustment and get Chad out of there, knock him out. And he said in the Mayweather fight, they prepared for the Philly Shell, which is basically how Floyd fought for 49 of his professional fights. And then he said when Floyd switched it up and started walking him down and coming after him, he just had no answer. He said, in the past, any of his MMA fights, he would have made an adjustment and, they would have reacted and he would have got the job done. But that was a good example. I thought that was pretty interesting too. Another thing I took from John's interview is he said the Conor McGregor that knocked out Eddie Alvarez in what I think you and I agree is probably one of the best performances in mixed martial arts history would smoothly beat that Conor McGregor. The current McGregor would beat the Eddie Alvarez one. And I thought, wow, that's fucking incredible. If he's not blowing smoke and he's, on the dot with that one, that's going to be something special.
Yeah, I think we've learned over the years with John Kavanaugh, take what he says at a grain of salt sometimes, because he's definitely, the guy pumps up his own fighters, and I respect that, and he's their coach. But I think the thing that is most telling for me about that Conor is watching him post all these photos and all these videos of him competing with wrestlers, him competing in the gi, really trying to push the narrative that he is focused on his grappling and it's not all about striking for him. And I think that's the gap that a lot of people said Conor McGregor had no interest in closing. And I think he's showing a little bit like he's at least putting the effort in, even if it's not enough to close the skill gap on some of the elite grapplers. He's definitely trying to become a more complete mixed martial artist.
Well, I think it's just the fact that really for the last probably 9 to 10 months, he's been there. He's not traveling the world on world tours or promoting his whiskey, all over the world. He's been there. He's been in the gym and he's been preparing for this comeback season, that he's calling it. And Cowboy this Saturday is the first stop. So yeah, I'm fucking pumped for this. Every day gets closer and closer and closer. And I don't know what to expect from Conor. I think it's going to be greatness is what I think.
I completely agree with you, and I think if nothing else, I see, and I almost never say this about an MMA fight, and knock on wood, but I see no way that this could possibly be a boring fight. I think every possible scenario I think about in my head, this is a wildly exciting contest.
Yeah, and like I said, Donald's got nothing to lose. He should go in there and just let it all hang out. He's got nothing to lose. So that's why I think it's going to be...
His interview with Brett Okamoto, too, that guy that's as focused as we've seen Donald.
And calm.
Donald Cerrone, he comes in there and he is like, it's just another day at the office. It's another fight, whatever. He looked the camera dead in the eye and said, if you think that we haven't trained every single possibility for this fight, like, you are dead wrong.
Yeah.
He's coming to knock this guy out.
Well, and he said, too, he said, I've got 2 losses in a row, albeit to Tony Ferguson and Justin Gaethje. But he said three losses in a row is going to really chap his ass, is what he said. And, yeah, Cowboy hasn't been, a top 5 fighter at 2 weight classes for the last 10 years for no reason. The dude's a stud. So, yeah, I don't know. I really liked his interview with Brett Okamoto. That was, like you said, that's the calmest I've ever seen Cowboy. He just looks calm, at peace with everything in his life, and ready to go.
How friggin' awesome are the Cowboy Cerrone Budweiser cans?
So awesome. So awesome. That's the first thing I'm going to do when I touch down in Vegas is go find one of those. I'm going to get one to save for my MMA room right here and chug one. And it's on.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, Cowboy had a lot of good gyms in there, too. This is the first time Cowboy's headlining a pay-per-view. That seemed kind of crazy to me.
That's wild. For a guy who's fought that many times and fought for this long, I mean, good for him. Donald Cerrone, to me, is like one of the best, if not the best fighter to fight in the UFC and never win the UFC belt.
Yeah, or WEC. I mean, he's just I think he'll go down if he can't get a belt, which I think if he loses to Conor, I don't see any way that Cowboy gets another title fight. I mean, the guy's 36 years old. He's fought everyone, and that's been a knock on him. He just can't seal the deal when he's got these gigantic opportunities, whether it be a title shot or number one contender spot. So yeah, that there's been a lot of narrative about that this week. Cowboy always comes up short on the big stage, and Conor thrives on the big stage.
The flip side of that is every time they try and build someone off of Cowboy's name, which I know Conor's already established, but they are setting this up a little bit where it's like a very winnable fight for Conor. He is basically a 3-1 favorite in Vegas right now. Every time that happens, when they seem to count Cowboy out, I think of like Alex Hernandez, Ali Quinta. It's happened before where that's when you get the best Cowboy. And so I think those two things are kind of playing off each other right now. Where like, yes, it's a huge stage, but they're also clearly the UFC wants Conor to win this. And
but with Cowboy, I mean, he's taken so many fights. It's gone the other way too. I mean, Darren Till, Leon Edwards, those are guys that Darren Till, I mean, came out of nowhere after he starched Cowboy. So I don't know. I think the bigger thing is just when Cowboy has been, right there at the top where he has a chance to become a champion or get a title shot, he just comes up short. And the bottom line is that's because he's fighting the best of the best, and he has been doing that for 10 years plus. So, I don't know. I mean, Cowboy's career, when it's all said and done, he's going to have all the records. There's no more. Cowboy's the last of a dying breed. You're not going to see another Cowboy Cerrone in this sport, period.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I also agree with you that I think win or lose, to be honest, I don't really think it changes Cowboys' fortunes very much, to be honest. Like, I don't see him getting like a huge fight at 55 or 70 by beating Conor, even if it's decisive. And if he loses, he's definitely not getting it. Whereas Conor is more of a crossroads where he kind of has the world in his hands if he wins. But if he loses, I actually think he's in a bit of trouble as far as the future of his MMA career is concerned.
Yeah, so we'll later. Let's jump in later down the road. We'll say, where does Conor go if he wins or loses? Where does Cowboy go if he wins or loses? Do you want to do predictions?
Sure, let's do it.
I've been pretty firm on this the last 2 weeks. I think it's a second round knockout for Conor. I think my heart kind of is pulling for Cowboy, but I just don't think on this stage it's realistic. I think Conor's, like you said, he's got the world by the balls right now. And any time that he's been in that situation, he delivers, for the most part. And Cowboy, like I said, just hasn't. I mean, he hasn't delivered on a stage like this. This is the biggest fight of both of these guys' careers, I think. This is going to be the biggest payday for Cowboy. For Conor, this is the most important fight of his career, I think. This is make or break for Conor. So I'm gonna go with Conor, second round knockout.
Parker, there was a very famous Irish sportsman in 2015 who once looked a cowboy in the eye and said, he's too stiff and he's too slow. And I think we're going to see that on Saturday night, man. I'm getting Conor McGregor, first round KO.
First round. Wow.
After the Gaethje fight, I think the cowboy chin is not really what it used to be. And I think Conor hits as hard as anybody that Cowboys ever faced, to be honest. And I just think Cowboy's been knocked out a few times. I think we're getting to the end of the road. I think Conor's really motivated, and I think Cowboy just gets hit. He's always been at his best when he takes your best shot and he moves forward. And I've never seen anyone take Conor McGregor's best shot and keep moving forward. And so I'm taking Conor by first round KO.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Cowboy's strength is, it takes him a round to figure it out, and then he likes being in wars. I mean, he thrives on that. And I just don't think he can take that shot. I mean, and that's the question. I mean, if he can weather the storm, I think, his odds of victory get higher and higher as the rounds go on, but I don't think he's going to be able to weather the storm. And I don't buy that he's chinny or that, he's taken damage, and the psychopath took a Justin Gaethje fight after 8 weeks after getting his orbital and nose looked like it shattered, blew up like a balloon from Tony Ferguson. So that's just Cowboy. I don't see him being chinny. I just don't think he's going to be able to take that left hand of a focused, dialed-in Conor McGregor. I just don't.
Yeah, so we're both in agreement, Conor KO. You have it in the second. I have it in the first.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to be round 1 or 2. I just think Conor's going to come out too hot. I think he's going to be coming out looking to make a statement. And if he does, there's no telling what he's going to do if he gets on the mic afterward. There's just no telling. He could go in so many directions. And I think we know how the UFC works. I mean, there's a picking order. There's a scheme they follow. The rankings, all that are great. But whatever Conor McGregor says goes. That's just the reality of it. And let's dive into this. Where do you think these guys go with a win and a loss, both of them? We'll start with let's start with Conor.
So if Conor wins, I think he calls for a world title. I really do. And I'm not sure if it's Khabib or if it's Usman. I truthfully don't think he would get either if he asked for him. I think basically his best options anyway are either Masvidal or Gaethje. I could see a scenario where he calls out Masvidal.
I think the biggest fight, the best fight, the one that we're going to be fucking chomping at the bits for is Masvidal. And I think that's the fight Conor wants. And I think Dana White's been teasing at it for over a year, saying he thinks Conor's too small for Masvidal and all that. And that eats at Conor. And honestly, I think that fight, I think Masvidal versus Conor sells better than Khabib versus Conor. That sells better than Tony versus Conor. That sells better than Usman versus Conor. The build up to that is going to be chaos. And it's for this fucking hypothetical belt that Nate Diaz made. And they're bringing the BMF belt back out, and shit's going to get crazy. They're going to have The Rock there again.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. How many interim title fights have we had to see on pay-per-view? Of course they're bringing the BMF belt back.
Yeah. It's there. And fuck. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to get crazy. I think it's George Masvidal. I agree with you. I don't think he's getting the Khabib fight. he's not skipping Justin Gaethje for next to fight Khabib. I just don't think so. I think he needs to get more steam behind him. I think if he can get a knockout against Cowboy and then somehow he goes in there and beats George Masvidal, I don't know. I think he's
one fight at a time. One fight at a time.
Yeah, but I visualize a scenario where he puts 3 fights together and then his 4th fight accumulates to Khabib. The Khabib rematch in Moscow, Conor's redemption, and if Conor knocked him out in Moscow, I mean, you just sell off into the sunlight. just retire on top. That's like storybook shit. And I think Conor probably has crazy aspirations like that. But for Conor, I think we agree. I think Masvidal's next, if not Justin Gaethje. And then after that, you'll have to see how Tony and Khabib play out. I don't think he wants anything to do with Usman and the 170 title. I don't think. But it's Conor and you never know. I just don't think that's not a gigantic fight. I mean, it's a gigantic fight because Conor's involved, but it's not Conor versus George Masvidal.
So what I wonder is, does the UFC push for Masvidal against Usman and then Conor against Gaethje with the hopes that if Masvidal and Conor both win, he could go to 170 and fight Masvidal for the belt? Because that's, I think, what the UFC really wants.
Yes. So you could get the BMF belt and the 170 belt in one swoop and then set up a gigantic payday with Khabib or Tony.
Bingo.
Yeah, no, I think that's a phenomenal fight, and so maybe it's Gaethje. Maybe Gaethje's the one.
I think it's well within the realm of possibilities.
Well, and for hardcores like us, I mean, the casuals aren't going to know a lot about Justin Gaethje, but that's the ballsiest fight you can take outside of Tony Ferguson at 155. I mean, that's just...
We got YouTube, Parker. They're going to learn real quick who Justin Gaethje is.
I know.
We got YouTube.
Everyone type in Justin Gaethje highlight tape.
You better watch. You better watch. That's your homework. Anyone listening to this show, if you don't know who Justin Gaethje is.
Yeah. Yeah. Fuck. Maybe that is the one. Let me ask you this. You think Justin Gaethje and Masvidal over their front row?
Oh, yeah. 100%. 100%.
I think both of them, when he gets on the mic, are going to start standing up.
They're going to have to do a split screen camera of watching, three screens. Conor in the middle of the octagon giving the post-fight speech, and then Gaethje or Masvidal looking to get picked like it's the frickin' Bachelor.
Yeah, like they're the homecoming queen. Yeah, I think you're right. That's fucking brilliant. Justin Gaethje, and it doesn't have to be at 55 again. I think it could be at 170 and just say, yeah. I mean, yes, you're genius. Shoot Sean Shelby and Mick Maynard a message right now. Just tell them you already laid it out.
I have the plan. Don't worry, Sean and Mick. I got you.
Okay. With a loss, I think the only option for Conor is Nate. I think it's that Nate Diaz trilogy. And then I just don't see how you sell anything else besides that. I think that's a given. Maybe another Floyd fight, a Floyd rematch, just to make them both a shitload of money. Conor talked about that in the Ariel interview.
Yeah, I'm not entertaining any MMA versus boxing matches ever again. I'm done.
If Conor puts 2 wins together, he can call out Floyd again and we can do this all again.
Parker, I want no part of that.
Zuffa Boxing is right around the corner.
So I tend to agree with you on the Nate thing. Let me offer 2 potential things that I think could happen if Conor loses as well, that are kind of, I think, flying under the radar, but very possible.
Okay.
Max Holloway at 155.
Yes. Yeah.
Very sellable fight. Second one.
And that's a way to build Max Holloway back up. If Max Holloway beats Conor McGregor at 55, I mean, he's like the man at 55, and that throws him right into title contention. I think he would only need that fight to get a title shot.
Second one, Jose Aldo at 155 rematch.
You think Aldo would come back up 20 pounds after moving down to bantamweight? Doesn't matter, I guess.
It doesn't matter, man. I mean, that's coming up is easy. It's going down that's hard. I absolutely think Aldo would take that fight. I think that way you get rid of this whole nonsense about Aldo getting a bantamweight title shot, which like literally nobody wants except for Henry Cejudo. And I think Conor would take it. I think he would fight Aldo again, knowing that he's got 2 losses in a row. So,
my thing with that is just like, how do you do it better? There's no way you're going to do it better. That was my thing with the DC Stipe fight. It's like, yeah, I understand you got to make that rematch, but I mean, there's no way to do it better. He knocked the guy out flush in 14 seconds with 1 punch. So I don't know, but obviously those are 2 big names. You could do it in Brazil. That would be gigantic.
You got no options at that point, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
if you lose to Cowboy Cerrone and you're Conor, your whole mystique is out the window.
Yeah.
So like you kind of got to take what's
what
offered to you in certain respects.
Yeah. Okay, for Cowboy. If Cowboy somehow pulls out a win here, where do you think he goes?
Dustin Poirier. I think he fights Dustin Poirier if he wins.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, everyone forgets about Dustin coming back in the picture.
Yeah, I think that's the fight if he wins.
Yeah. I also think with Dustin, I think he could go up to 170, and him and Nate Diaz at 170 is awesome.
Oh, I'd love that. But I just think if Cowboy wins, Cowboy's going to get on the microphone and say he wants a shot at that title, and the only way he's getting that is either a rematch with Gaethje, who I don't think will take another fight before he fights for the title.
Unless it's Conor.
Unless it's Conor.
Yeah.
Or Cowboy fights Poirier. I also think there's like a small chance that Cowboy could want the Masvidal fight back and fight Masvidal at 170 if he beats Conor.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. With the loss, like I said, Cowboy's just going to keep cowboying until he doesn't want to anymore.
Yeah, I think if he loses, I think he ends up fighting the loser of the Paul Felder-Dan Hooker fight. So whoever loses that will be Cowboy's next opponent, would be my guess.
At 55, yeah. And I love all of those fights. Yeah. Shit's about to get crazy.
You can't go wrong with lightweight. You really can't go wrong with lightweight.
You can't go wrong with Conor McGregor back in MMA. Conor McGregor back in MMA is just, it's gold. You can do whatever you want. Everyone's going to make a lot of money the next couple of years. Okay. Anything else on that fight?
I'm good, man. I could not be more excited for this fight.
I can't either. Like I said, I fly out Friday morning. I'll be in Vegas Friday before lunch, and I'm so excited. I just think when I look back on this 15, 20 years from now, it's going to be like, you saw Ali live, you saw Tyson live, I saw McGregor live. I'm super stoked, and I'm definitely going to be videoing, putting it all over the pages, Twitter, everything. So, yeah, I'm pumped. I'm really, really pumped. Let's run through the rest of this card real quick and just give out predictions.
Sure.
Okay, so we talked about the main event. Holly Holm versus Raquel Pennington. This is a rematch. Where I'm at on this is, to me, I honestly think Holly Holm, I'm not going to say she's overrated. I'm just going to say I think she peaked at the Ronda fight. And she's just been able to kind of linger around. And, you know, I don't see her ever being champion again. But I think she's good enough to beat Raquel Pennington in a decision. So that's kind of where I'm going to go. I think she's just going to outstrike Raquel Pennington for 3 rounds and win a decision.
I think this is going to be a really boring fight, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think it's 2 women who have kind of a go backward fighting style, to be honest. And I think if Holly Holm loses this fight, she retires.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I just don't see any more big time fights for her. I think she'll just keep fighting the middle of the road of that division, and that's it. I mean, she's never beating Amanda Nunes. She won't get the fight with Shevchenko again, even though she went to decision with her. So yeah, Holly Holm by decision is what I've got. Alexei Oleinik versus Maurice Green. I've got Oleinik by decision. By submission. I just think he's, for anyone that's not a top, 5 heavyweight, I think he puts you in just weird positions. And he just gets, what is he? He's the Ezekiel choke guy, isn't he?
The no-gi Ezekiel that he rocks. Like a lot of times from the bottom too, he can hit it.
He's just weird. He does some really, really weird shit, and I just don't think someone like Maurice Green is going to be skilled enough to not get caught in that. So I'm going Oleinik by submission.
I have Oleinik by submission in round 1. Here's my hot take on this particular fight, and I think crochet boss thing is hilarious from Maurice Green. I just don't think that guy is a very good MMA fighter. I think he's just big and athletic. And so, like, against a technician like Oleinik, I think Oleinik is going to hit him in some, like, kind of sambo or judo takedown, like a trip or something, get him down and just strangle him unconscious. And, like, I just don't think Maurice Green is all that great as a fighter. And so I'm taking Oleinik early by submission.
Yeah. Okay. Claudia Gadelha versus Alexa Grasso. I've got Gadelha by decision. I think that'll be a decently paced fight, and I think she'll end up winning that by decision.
Yeah, I have Grasso by decision. I think Grasso is really starting to put it together. Her last couple fights have been much more complete performances out of her, and really, since Gadelha fought Joanna, I don't think she's really improved that much as a fighter, to be honest. So I'm taking Grasso. I kind of think these are 2 trajectories headed in opposite directions. Okay.
Yeah, I caught an interview today with Claudia Gadelha, and she claims that she's more focused. The last couple of years she's been kind of drifting. She was a little lost, and she says, this is the most focused she's been, and she's a talented girl. I think she'll get it done. Showtime Pettis is an underdog to Carlos Diego Ferreira. What are your thoughts on that one?
I think Anthony Pettis, every time that he is a slight underdog like he is in this fight, I think he comes out and performs really well. Right. I think the story about him cutting his hand on the drug test on the glass bottle before the Nate fight,
that was wild.
What a bizarre story.
Right.
But I think he's tough as nails, and I think at 155 he has really incredible power. That's pretty underrated. That being said, I think this is a real dogfight. I think Ferreira is really hungry. This is his opportunity to build his name. He's a very, very talented fighter. I just think Pettis is kind of on a different level athletically.
And skills. I mean, I think people are sleeping on Anthony Pettis. I mean, that guy is as skilled as they come. He's been there, done that, seen everything. I think he's getting a little disrespected this week. I've got Showtime Pettis. I think it'll be a war. I think this might be your fight of the night. It might be back and forth, first or 2 rounds, and then I think Anthony Pettis is going to catch him with something in the 3rd round and finish him. So I'm going finish, knockout, Anthony Pettis.
I'm going to go decision, but I think Pettis wins this one in a decision.
Gets it done. Okay, Roxana Modafferi taking on one of my favorite up-and-coming fighters, Macy Barber. Roxana Modafferi is a vet. She's a pioneer for women's MMA. But Macy Barber's the future. I think this girl's here. I think she's legit. She's young. She's got a very, very high ceiling. And I think she's going to go in there and make a statement on a Conor McGregor card. And I think she's 1 or 2 fights away from a title shot. So I'm going Macy Barber by finish. I think she gets... I'm going to go ground and pound finish.
Macy Barber's training with Ben Askren for this fight, right?
Correct. The last 2 camps, I believe.
So here's my thing with Roxy. She's a really good grappler who has not great takedowns and very bad striking, in my opinion. And so I just think she's going to get pieced up by Barber and not be able to take Macy Barber down. I actually see Macy finishing this on the feet by knockout in the second round.
Yeah, I think whatever. Yeah. No, I mean, whatever it is, I think it's going to be vicious. Macy Barber, for a woman, throws some of the heaviest hands I've seen in all of women's MMA. She's violent. She kind of reminds me of how George Masvidal was fighting right now. She throws to kill you, and she wants to put you away. She wants to finish fights, and she wants to be a superstar. So I think this is her opportunity. I think she's going to make a big splash.
Strawweight and flyweight women don't really knock people out all that often.
Yeah.
Macy Barber does.
I think she's finished
every special thing.
I think she's finished every one of her fights except one in the UFC. So
I think you're right.
Yeah. Okay, this one I know you're high on. Andre Fili taking on Yusuf. I think this is going to be a scrap. Yeah. This one or Showtime Pettis. I think either one of those fights could be your fight of the night. But this Yusuf guy, he came off the Contender Series, I believe, and he's got a chance to be a superstar too. He's Nigerian as well. So, I think they're kind of making a push for the 3 Nigerian champs, Usman, Stylebender, and eventually Yusuf. And the dude's got talent. He throws fucking bombs. He's fun to watch.
It's 2 great camps too. It's Fortis against Alpha Male with Yusuf against Andre Fili. I think this is also a decision. I have Yusuf winning by decision, but this to me is a war. And Fili has been on a roll too, and he seems to have finally really put it together. Also, he has a tattoo of Uriah Faber on his.
I saw that.
Now,
Which
is
that's hilarious.
A little weird, but also you're dedicated to your gym at that point, and so yeah. I think he's starting to put it together. I think this is a great fight. I'm very excited for this one.
Yeah, I think this is kind of a 50-50. I think this could go either way, and I think these guys might get in there and start just swinging, and I mean anyone could get caught. So I'm going to be sitting in my seat with a nice bourbon on ice, locked in on that fight. That's going to be the one.
No proper 12 for you in Vegas?
Proper 12 shitty. Not a great Irish whiskey. Great branding, great marketing, not the best Irish whiskey. Your guy, Hasperask, he's super talented. I think that guy's got a lot of potential and definitely going to be locked in on that fight too. I'm going to take him. I'm going to take Yusuf, 3rd round knockout. I'm going to take Hasperas, 2nd round knockout.
I have Haqparast by 2nd round knockout as well. I think that guy is one of the best prospects in MMA. And I think this is a clear example of him taking out a guy who's in Drew Dober, who is obviously a great fighter, but kind of average for the UFC roster.
Right.
And I just see Haqparast taking him out. I think he's such a powerful striker. It's kind of unbelievable.
Yeah. Okay, we're on the same page there. Any other ones?
That's it from me. I think there's actually more fun fights on the prelims for me than on the actual pay-per-view until you get to the main event.
Yeah, I'm going to be there early. I think it's a 3 o'clock start in Vegas. So let's say you want to do current events after we interview Brock Weaver tonight?
Sure, let's do it.
Yeah, I think you got to get to a dinner and I got to eat something. But yeah, last question on this. You think this is the best ESPN pay-per-view yet, numbers wise?
Ooh.
I mean, it's got to do over 1 million, right?
I think so. I think so. The only one that the only reason I have a little bit of hesitation is 244 BMF title, all the promotion they did for that. Nate Diaz, Jorge Masvidal. It was a great card. It's New York City. But
that one apparently did
probably...
that one apparently did 600,000 buys. The BMF one. Yeah, I think it's a Conor McGregor fight. I think it's doing over 1 million, and I think it'll probably end up being the best ESPN one as of yet. And everyone's going to be happy. Like you say, Conor's back. Business is booming. This is going to be a fucking crazy year.
I can't wait for this.
Yeah,
I'm going to lose sleep Friday night, and you're going to be the one in Vegas.
Oh, I know. I'm definitely going to lose sleep. I'm definitely going to lose some sleep. Okay, so we're going to take a break. We're going to interview Brock Weaver tonight, up-and-coming UFC fighter, and then we'll run through current events. We've got, 4 or 5 current events we want to talk about, and then we'll be posting both of these live probably tomorrow. So we'll be right there, and maybe we can catch some of the highlights of the press conference in between our little break here. So go have your dinner. I'll catch you in an hour or so. Signing out for episode 1A of the Conor McGregor week.
Cool.
All right, man. We'll catch you in a little bit.
Sounds good.
All right, bye.
Thanks for listening to Parker's MMA Show. Take a moment to rate and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and visit ParkerKeen'sMMAShow.podbean.com for additional information on Parker and to stay up to date on the latest drama in the fight world. For more information and important links about today's episode, check out the show notes.